Hey kids! Alright, so we're into the third and final installment of the killer whale debate. I apologize for um the lateness of this posting. I've been helping some students with some technological challenges, and so the posting of this is a little bit late. I apologize for that, and we had a staff meeting today. Um, okay. So to kind of review a little bit from the previous weeks, we've been talking about argument, and in particular, we are focusing on the idea behind how do we develop our own opinions about an article? How do we make a judgment about what to believe, who to believe, and why do we believe those things? So we're talking about reasoning, evidence, bias. So, um, on Thursday, you guys had an article to read that kind of gave you a summary of what happened, as well as a little bit of SeaWorld's opinion. And then yesterday, you guys read a National Geographic article that focused completely on the Blackfish film and what the people who made Blackfish believe, and it gave you a bunch of scientific evidence as well as opinions and stuff from that to delve into. And so today is our last installment. We're going kind of focus on the SeaWorld argument again and what they believe. Now, this was an article published in the San Diego Union Tribune in October 2013 and is by this guy named Michael Scarpuzzi. And he is the vice president of essentially all the zoos in SeaWorld. Okay, so he's responsible for everything. And this is his personal response to, so this is not like a SeaWorld thing, this isn't a Blackfish thing, this isn't National Geographic. This is directly from the guy who oversees everything. And I think it's also very important that we hear his opinions as well. So he calls his claim in this article is that the Blackfish documentary is quote unquote inaccurate and shamefully misleading account of what goes on at SeaWorld. And he calls the film quote unquote propaganda, and that it aims to sensationalize. Now, when people say sensationalize, that means that they're trying to make something bigger than it really is, okay? And the word propaganda means that information specifically meant to be biased and to convince you of a particular argument, that may and that the information may or may not be true. It might be exaggerated in order to promote that particular belief system, political cause, point of view. Okay, so Michael is basically calling the Blackfish documentary. He's calling it propaganda, and that it's meant to blow this issue out of proportion and convince you of something that's not true. So what you're going to do is you're going to click on the article, and mine's already pulled up. And so if you click on the next slide, you'll see there is just a quick note here that the article does reference the death of the SeaWorld trainer Dawn Brancheau in February of 2010. She was a very experienced trainer at SeaWorld, and Tilikum, the whale who killed her, pulled her into the water, injured her, and then drowned her. And so just a quick note letting you know about that, heads up. Now, as we read, we need to find 5 examples from the article that support Scarpuzzi's argument. Okay, what are his 5 examples that Blackfish is misleading and inaccurate and biased? And we need to provide those quotations directly from the text and or to paraphrase them in our own words. And you're going to put those 5 things on the final slide. Okay, so I'm going to leave this slide up so that I can copy and paste into, and I'm going to pull open our article. So the article is titled Blackfish Film Ignores SeaWorld's Benefits to Conservation and Research. Again, this is an opinion piece written by the guy who oversees all. It's important to recognize that he makes his money from SeaWorld, and so his information, we have to take that under consideration, that he is getting paid from SeaWorld. And so, of course, you're going to defend you know, the take your money and the people who have your job and your insurance and your pension and all that good stuff, right? All right, so continuing on. So this is the article. I'm going to read it to you. Pause whenever you feel it's necessary to copy and paste. And I'll do the first one for you. Okay, so you only have to do 4. So again, we're looking for evidence that supports his claim. So here we go. Shortly after 1:30 p.m. on February 24, 2010, a SeaWorld Orlando trainer lost her life in a tragic accident involving one of the park's killer whales. The death of Dawn Brancheau was an occasion of almost unbearable sadness for those closest to Dawn, her family, friends, and colleagues at SeaWorld. I was honored to know Dawn and count myself among those SeaWorld team members deeply affected by her loss. Dawn has been the subject of thousands of articles, broadcast news stories, blogs, and books, and now a feature film called Blackfish. Many of these accounts trade in the details of Dawn's death in graphic detail. They do so not to inform, but rather, regrettably, because of the desire to sensationalize. Now remember, sensationalize means to make something bigger than it is. The 3 years since Dawn's death have seen the emergence or coming out of individuals who have chosen not to honor her memory, but rather to use the events of February 24, 2010 to advance their own interests. Some seek commercial or monetary gain. Others seek, or money, like gaining money. Others seek to forward a political or philosophical agenda. Still others appear to be engaged in self-promotion. But anyone approaching this subject in good faith must recognize a simple fact. Our staff has interacted with killer whales for veterinary care, training, shows, educational presentations, husbandry, exercise, play, and enrichment hundreds of times a day for nearly 50 years. The tragedy of Dawn's death cannot and has not been ignored, but neither should the literally millions of safe interactions we have had with killer whales over that span of time. Blackfish focuses on a handful of incidents over our long history at the exclusion of everything else. Not a single interview with a guest who is inspired and enriched by their experience with the killer whales at SeaWorld. Not one visitor who left SeaWorld more aware of the need to preserve the world around them. Not one word about the thousands of ill, orphaned, and injured animals rescued by SeaWorld or the millions of dollars we dedicate to supporting conservation and research. There is no acknowledgement anywhere in the film of the great things SeaWorld does every day, or the simple fact that our animals are healthy and passionately cared for. I started at SeaWorld in 1975 and have witnessed the growth and changes that come with a company that is dedicated to understanding these magnificent animals. We've collected invaluable information about these animals that could not be obtained from observation in the wild. In the 3 years since Dawn's death, we have again made significant changes at SeaWorld. We have altered how we care for, display, and train these extraordinary animals. We have changed the facilities, equipment, and procedures at our. Does Blackfish inform its viewers of that fact? No, it does not. And by that omission, the film itself not as a work of objective documentary filmmaking, but rather as something closer to propaganda. As we have said many times, there is simply no higher priority for us than the safety of our guests and staff and the welfare of our animals. We understand that there will always be individuals and groups opposed to the care of animals in zoos and aquariums. We recognize that we must defend what we do and the manner in which we do it. Blackfish, like other works driven by the same propaganda, ignores the extraordinary benefits to conservation, scientific research, and education of America's zoo and aquariums. But through it all, SeaWorld maintains the world's most respected marine zoological institution. Our parks are staffed with skilled and caring zoological professionals, all of whom deserve to have their work celebrated, not dishonored by things like Blackfish. Despite what the makers of this film may suggest, SeaWorld is the kind of organization that draws dedicated and passionate people like Dawn Brancheau. These are men and women who have built SeaWorld into an extraordinary place, one that provides inspiring and enriching educational experiences to more than 11 million people each year. Not the inaccurate and shamefully misleading account in Blackfish is what SeaWorld really is. All right. So what we need to go do is go back through this article and think to ourselves, where in here does he support his idea that a fair account of the things that are going on in at SeaWorld? So where do we think that they might not have been fair and been showing both sides? Well, when I think of a fair argument, I'm really looking for hearing both sides. I want to make sure that I'm hearing about maybe even some of the positive things that SeaWorld is doing, even though they are having this issue. So what I am looking at is Polo, because this is where it really kind of digs into um, the idea that Blackfish hasn't been fair to SeaWorld. So what does he say is not fair? Well, he says that give them enough credit for the thousands of animals injured animals rescued by SeaWorld, or the millions of dollars we dedicate to supporting conservation and research. So I'm going to just copy that, because they do those things, and we know that based on the other. I'm just going to get into this document here. And then for number 1, now you can either choose to do a quote here and just copy it and drop it directly in here, or you can do a paraphrase. So I'm just going to paste that in there. So it says, we don't want that ugly background in there. So you can just right click and then paste without formatting. All right, so it says not one word about the thousands of ill, orphaned, and injured animals. So I'm just going to put quotes around it. I'm going to give you a little bit of an explanation. So, Scarpuzzi sees this as unfair because the Blackfish documentary did not give the full picture. There we go. And of course you can make it bigger if you need to. Yourself some more space. I'm gonna actually shrink the text size down to 14. That way you have a little bit more space in there. So now we have the arguments that he's making as well. So we've looked at the arguments from Blackfish, and now we're really delving into the arguments created by the opposing side, right? What you need to be doing in order to form that final solidified opinion. So remember, if you're doing this on PowerPoint, you need to save it and then upload it back onto Canvas. If you are doing this on a Google Slides like me, you need to click that share button and then click get shareable link, and it will copy for you, and then you just drop that into the website URL and share that with me, so that way I can grade it, look at it, and give you feedback. Well, I hope everybody is having a great Monday and that I get to hear from you guys soon. All right, bye.